I have two questions today for you worship leaders and worship team. Number one question is, if there's a brother or sister from your church who wants to join the worship team but he or she is not musically inclined, should you let him or her in the team? Secondly, it's almost like the first question, but should you just let anybody inside the worship team? I mean, if he's musically talented and gifted, does that automatically mean that we should let them in the worship team? I just like to share my thoughts in this video and hopefully help you grow your worship team, not just in number but spiritually. So to answer the number one question, I believe that the worship team is the best place that a person can learn music. I mean, that's based on experience. Coming into the worship team, myself, I did not know how to play worship music. Yes, my family was music inclined. We played a lot of classical music, but I did not know how to play the keyboard, the guitar. All I knew how to play sa piano were notes. I read notes, and I also played the flute. But the flute was a solo instrument, so it couldn't really accompany the worship leader. But then I just kept joining the worship team, just being with people who actually played worship music. And the one thing that I actually did that was effective was one worship service, I was the second keyboard, but my keyboard wasn't actually plugged into the speaker, so the sound was just coming out of the keyboard speaker itself. So it was only me and the musician beside me who could hear the sound of the keyboard. I didn't mind if I was playing the wrong chords. It wouldn't disturb the whole team, but that helped me a lot to boost my confidence in playing on stage, playing with the team, accompanying the worship leader, just feeling what it's like to play worship music. And it also helped me in my keyboard skills. I kept doing that for a while. Eventually I plugged in the keyboard to the main speaker and I accompanied worship leaders, and I just kept growing. The Lord just kept expanding my gifts. So yes, if there's someone who isn't musically inclined who wants to join the team and his desire is really to sing or to play the music or to play an instrument, I would let her or him in the team. I actually have one other great example. She's also in our worship team. When she first entered, she was totally out of tune, and the thing is, she wasn't aware of it. She would confidently sing into the mic and she would always sing the wrong notes, and she would be constantly scolded by my mom. At that time, she was the worship team head, and my mom's really strict with singing the right notes, and she never backed down. She would always join the worship team rehearsal. She would always sing with those who actually could sing, and she's improved. It's her 10th year joining the worship team. She's improved. She's been singing backup. She's been even leading worship in our church and in the school where she's teaching at. She's really a testimony that the best place where you can learn music is actually the worship team. Now, to answer the second question, should you just let anybody in? If someone new comes in church and he's musically gifted, or maybe he's coming from a band, should you just let them in the team? For me, this is my conviction. You don't have to follow it, but I hope you do. The worship ministry is one of the ministries in church, if not the only ministry in church, that should be taken seriously. Everybody in the worship team should have his or her life consecrated, totally committed to the Lord. I mean, if we were to look back at the Old Testament, the worship team before were actually the Levites, and we know the Levites were consecrated. They were set apart. They were separated by the Lord. They were asked and commanded to live holy lives, to be in service full time for the Lord, for the people. And the Levites, they had to make sure that they themselves were living holy lives, that their family, their children, their children's children, their apo sa tuhod were living holy lives. And they knew that if just one family member who isn't living a holy life, they knew what they would get from God. I believe that we in the modern day church, modern day worship team should copy that same attitude towards our lives. I believe we should, as Christians, even if you're not in the worship team, should copy that same attitude. So should we just let anybody in? For me, I think the first thing that we should do is check up on him or her. Maybe disciple him or her. This is what we actually do in church, in our outreach. Before we let anybody in, we have a 6 months observation period where he is gonna be under a discipler, and he's gonna go through discipleship, and we're just gonna observe his or her life, his commitment. And if the church, the leaders actually see that he or she is living the Christian, the holy life, then we let him in, no matter how talented he or she is. So those 2 questions I answered here in this video, because I believe those 2 questions should be what worship teams should ask when considering people joining the team. I know of churches who actually don't let people in who aren't musically inclined. They only accept musicians and, you know, those who are really like gifted. And I also know churches who just lets anybody in, no matter the lifestyle of the person. And I'm not here to like hate on that. I'm just here to, just here to share my thoughts. Hopefully help you and your worship team. I mean, if you're still growing, if you're still new, and you're still, you know, considering or thinking on how to run the team, then these 2 questions should be what you and your team should be asking. That's all for me. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for watching. Hope you learned something from this video. If you have any comments or thoughts on these 2 questions, feel free to comment down below. I'd love to hear them. I'd love to chat even about this topic with you. God bless you. Remember, Jesus loves you, so always sing your psalms for him.